Howdy, everybody in YouTube land. What we have here in front of us today is a Texas Instruments something another. I don't know yet. I have to look. Now, this was a viewer donation to the channel, which I am greatly appreciative of because I typically don't get donations, but this is like the second or third one I've gotten, so it's really cool. Love it. But it's also a basket case. I didn't take this apart. It was already taken apart, but just loosely fitted together, so I just popped it apart. Now, it's rough. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix it, but I'm going to try. Also, I'm worried that this has the brittle plastic syndrome because if we look underneath the LCD panel, this clip here is broke off, which goes on this side, and then that one is broke, but the clip is still in place, so this LCD may not shut. I had another Texas Instruments laptop that was, I believe, a donation to the channel. Yeah, it was. And it literally just crumbled apart in 1,000 pieces, so I got rid of it, and I kept the boards. Anyways, now, another thing I noticed right away is it's extremely rusted, like it's been in water. The other thing too is the keyboard is like it's got sand in it. You can't really push it. See, it's just not. Unless you hit the keys dead on, you can't really type on this keyboard. I literally can't. It's like it has sand in it. So that's gonna need some work. I got to pull all the keys and determine what's going on with that and how I can fix it. But I don't need that right this minute because we've got more pressing issues we have to attend to. The other thing too is it's got this goop that's just melted all over the keyboard. So that was probably a rubber bumper. That's not rubbery anymore. It's more like melty. So let me set that out of the way. It appears to have an active matrix display, judging from what it looks like. So, and it's intact. I don't see any damage or anything anywhere. No busted off hinges or anything like that. So, we might be all right with this. It's in good shape. Next thing I want to do is I want to turn the attention to the motherboard. As you can see, it's been a little bit wet. But the board itself doesn't look like it suffered much damage at all, so this might clean up. The heatsink metal shrouds over there, I did pop these off, and it's just solid rust. So I have to clean all of that up, and especially this, because this is really bad. I might have to order up some Evapo rust, try to clean it up and maybe spray paint it or something. I don't know yet, but that's a problem. And I gotta have that because this is the heatsink to the CPU, so this has to be in place. Otherwise I would just leave it out, but unfortunately I can't. It has to be in place, and I gotta clean the case up, which that shouldn't be too bad. I mean, a toothbrush and some Evapro rust and a little bit of paint, I can probably clean that up. But again, secondary to the problem, I can deal with that later. Wow, this is heavy. You know what? I think the battery's in there. Also, screws. I didn't take the screws out, and I do not know where they go yet. These two are rusted. Completely rusted, so I got to figure out how the screws are done in this. I don't even know if I have all of them. I probably don't. I don't know where this piece goes either. There's a lot of unknowns because I did not take it apart. But I will figure it out in time. Motherboard. Battery. That's got to go. It's not caused any damage yet as far as I can tell, but it's definitely going to go. And what's amazing to me is this actually has audio hardware built into it. And the reason why I say that's amazing is because this is a 486 laptop. It's a DX4 100. Which not many 486s had audio hardware built in. The other thing it has SCSI built in, because that is a SCSI interface. So I did some quick looking around, and yeah, there's the SCSI port. And we got rust back here too, so I need to, again, evapo rust, clean all that off, and repaint that with some spray paint or something. I don't know yet. I don't know how far I want to go with it, because I definitely want to see if this board will actually work before I put any kind of restoration effort at all. Also, we got the rust from the heatsink that goes around here on the chips, so I have to clear that up. So, yep, that looks like video memory. There's the main memory, which I pulled that module out. Again, proprietary. Let's see, what is it? It's a 16 megabyte. So it's got 16 megabytes of expanded memory, and it's got some here. That's either 8 megs or possibly 16 megs of onboard. I do not know. Is there any on the other side? No. So that's where we're at with that. There's the floppy disk controller. It did not have the hard drive or its caddy, so I don't have a way to mount the hard drive into the case because it requires a caddy, and I do not have that. But I could just lay one in there if I have to. So I'm going to have to find a caddy for that. Hard drive I don't care too much about because I got some, but I need the caddy. I do not have the caddy. So I have to figure that out. The other thing that I noticed too is right up here. I did spot this the other day. Let me grab a flashlight so I can light it up. There is a resistor, R20 it appears to be, is missing. And you can see a burn mark where it literally like caught itself on fire or something. So I need to figure out what resistor that is. And there's something missing there too. You can see the flux residue. It looks like a capacitor, or what was a capacitor. But more importantly, it was probably a resistor like this. But more importantly, I need to determine what caused that to fail. See, there's polymer caps in here. So, but this polymer cap is domed, while these aren't. That makes me wonder if this one failed. And like I said, polymer caps usually don't fail, but I've seen it. If that's failed, this would be the second time I've seen it. First one was in a Toshiba, same era machine. So this one might have failed too. But in order for me to even attempt to resurrect this machine, I gotta pull this DC-DC converter board off and see what we have going on there. And I might be able to find a parts machine of one of these. And make one good one out of two, but then again, I've not really seen another one of these, but I've not looked for one either. But this is the first one I've seen where we've got audio hardware built into a 486, and it's a Texas Instruments laptop. So I don't know who made it for TI, or if TI made it themselves. I don't know. But now that we have the bottom cover off, let's see if we have a branding or anything on it. Okay, Texas Instruments PB300T. I don't know if it's an Extensa model or what it is. I do not know. We're missing the door to that, which is not that big of a deal. Yes, it must have sat in water or something along those lines. It had to have. This must have been previous owner information and it was scratched off. There's the battery. Let's see what kind of battery chemistry we're dealing with. If I can even... That's an interesting battery mechanism I've never seen before. Oh yeah, she's been wet. There's a joke in there somewhere. Oh, this is a remanufactured or replacement. From 1995. No, it might be original. Nickel metal hydride, NIMH. Doesn't indicate the voltage. Contacts are in good shape. So it might be worth popping the top off of this and seeing if we can't resell this battery. But honestly, I don't really care a whole lot. I don't use these laptops enough to justify rebuilding the battery. But I like having it because it's the ballast. It's literally part of the machine. It covers this hole and it has weight in it. So, but I know if you leave it together, it's going to start degrading and turning into a powder puff eventually and bloating and, you know, all that fun stuff. So it makes me wonder if I shouldn't pop this apart and just put weights in here and put it back together. You know, do like the Chinese do and fill the cells with sand. I don't know. That way there's still weight and it gives it ballast for the machine. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But if any of you have a suggestion, leave it in the comments and we'll see what we can do with that. But yeah, the contacts are a little gross from the rust. But other than that, they're not bad. But yeah, I do not see. There's the FCC ID. There's the part number. It must be a PB300T. I don't know if it's an Extensa series. What is it? Is it a Travelmate? Maybe that information would be hidden up here somewhere. And I'm afraid to move this because I do not want to break the plastic. Because I'm worried that this plastic is peanut brittle. Just like they all were in 95. Oh yeah. That is loose as a goose. Yeah, I'm worried about the peanut brittle nature of this. Yeah, let me pause the video and swing that up. Actually, I can't move it. They're frozen, so they've been rusted shut. Oh, that's going to be interesting to figure out how I'm going to get this apart. Yeah, they've been frozen. But what I can do is I can actually see underneath here that it is a Travelmate 4000M. So there might be some of these on the internet somewhere, eBay or wherever. I don't know, but let's see, inspect the connectors, make sure we didn't damage any with that. So again, I didn't take this apart. It's intact. Let's check this one. It's also intact. What is here? Is that a like, oh, those are the LEDs and stuff. There's something missing on the top there. What is that? Oh, that's the power switch to turn it on. That's cool. There's a brightness, power switch, standby button. There's the speaker. Okay, I mean, the screen's in relatively good shape. I don't see any vinegar syndrome or anything like that. Doesn't mean anything. There could be a bad backlight inverter, who knows, but these hinges are frozen solid. They're so frozen that the hinges are moving inside where it's probably broke free. Oh, basket case. But hey, that's what we do on this channel. We fix basket cases. Next thing on the list, and the final thing on the list, is the floppy drive. So this is the original drive that came out of there, and it's rusted pretty good. I'm going to clean all that off the plastic, assuming it didn't embed itself into the plastic. But the other thing I noticed right away is the classic layout right here. This is a belted floppy drive. So this is probably a Citizen W1. Yep. W1E. So this is a belted floppy drive. And there's some belts on eBay, but it seems like the guy is always on vacation, so they're impossible to get. I had to order one once already for Dell. I'm like, you know, I need to go back and order 2 more. Vacation. Vacation till the 18th. Go back. Vacation till the 26th. It must be nice to go on, you know, month-long vacations all the time. He was on vacation before when I ordered the first one. Then he came back. Now he's on vacation again. At least that's what the account says. Anyways, rant over. But yeah, I can't do anything with that until I get a belt, because I guarantee it's going to need one. But what I can do is try to clean it up. However, again, not important at the moment in time. The most important thing right now is determining if we can get this motherboard to run again, because it is not going to run with a resistor looking like that. Either that cap failed, shorted, or something else went wrong, like from the rust or whatever, and it's ruined. Yeah, this board may not be any good. So we got to get past the elephant in the room first before we worry about any of this other stuff. So let's do that. Let's get this board out and try to determine what we got going on with that. So I've reached a point to where I'm going to have to consult with another Travelmate 4000 owner, because I got the caps out and all that stuff out of the way so I can clean up the solder joints. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to drill them out because the plating is melted and I can't fit component leads through there. So this connection appears to go to this diode and one of the two legs of the inductor here. So from what I've disseminated is the B plus side from the power adapter goes to this MOSFET, goes through the MOSFET into the coil, and then from the coil to this diode pack. One end of this diode goes to another diode, but it also goes to the battery. So this is probably the switch to charge the battery. But it also goes to one end of this resistor. If it goes anywhere else, I don't know. I don't find a connection anywhere on this board. Now, the problem is the other end here doesn't appear to go anywhere. I can't ring it out anywhere on this board. None of these connections, none of these transistors, ICs, this transformer. Nowhere that I can find outside of this Schottky diode here. It goes right to there, but that's it. Doesn't make sense because there was an extreme amount of current pulled through that resistor to burn it up. I mean, look at the capacitor with the dome top on it. You can see the burn marks where it literally it cooked this cap. That's why it's like this. So, yeah, I don't know where that goes because I can't buzz it out anywhere in this board. I tried ground, I tried all of these transistors, ICs, plus the harness that goes out to the main board. I buzzed it to here, nothing. So there's also no short from here, either into ground either. So I'm thinking whatever happened, there's another trace that's in one of the middle planes of the board that goes somewhere, probably to a transistor or something. There's a trace in the middle plane, I'm guessing, that's now burned open. It's burned open right here at this connection. So I don't know where it goes. So I need to find another owner that can buzz that out for me. I need to figure out where it goes in this board so I can run a patch wire. So that's where I'm at this point in time. So I'll be back once I get that figured out. Also, I need to determine what the value of that resistor actually is. Next thing I need to do is get this screen apart so I can determine if there's any caps in here that need replaced, but also the hinges are completely seized. So I need to figure out how we're going to get in here to handle that situation. So let's work on that. So I was able to take these two metal clamps out of here, the one that was here and fish them out of there. That allowed me to free up this part so I can at least get to the screen now, but I need to figure out how the screen's held together. There might be screws under here, but I'm not sure. My biggest worry with this is that plastic that was made in that special era, so I'm worried if I go to snap this apart, it's going to literally start snapping. So I guess there's only one way to find out, because I have to get to these hinges. Still rubbery. Surprisingly, it's not melting or anything. I must have used different rubber compositions through the years. Anyways, so under those rubber plugs are two screws. So they appear to be a T10. So I'm going to remove those two screws and hopefully that frees this thing up. Actually, no, those were T8 screws, so I grabbed my little T8 screwdriver. So I got them removed. Hopefully, it's still pretty stuck, so hopefully it comes apart relatively easily without any fuss. and without clips and plastic pieces flying everywhere anyway. So let's see. Got the bezel off. I only lost one plastic clip. So yes, it is brittle, and I lost that one right here. So I can probably glue that back on, but I would just be wasting my time. However, all of the other clips, as far as I can tell, remained intact. Yeah, I think we're okay. So it's not as brittle as the last Texas Instruments machine I worked on, which I can't recall if I got any video footage on or not. I think I did. But yeah, it literally just crumbled into thousands of shards. So hopefully this one turns out to be better. So I'm going to pull out the screen and the hinges and all of that stuff because I want to see if there's any capacitors in here that we're dealing with, as well as I got to check the inverter board. I saw a little bit of oxidation from water exposure, so it's all got to come out and be double checked. So the good news is they've gotten better with capacitors. So this display panel only has solid caps now, so that is likely fine. I'm going to check the backlight, make sure there's no water damage or anything like that, but nothing on here that I need to worry about. And the inverter board has one here, but it's a purple polymer, so I don't need to mess with that one either. So no bad caps in the display assembly, luckily. So really, the only attention that has to be paid in here is the hinges. So I got to get those hinges pulled out, re-greased, lubricated, and worked a bit. Got the hinge mechanisms out, so what we're going to do is leave these soak in oil a little bit for a little while so it will work its way in there, and then we can loosen those hinges up because yeah, they're supposed to be tight, but if they're too tight, you're going to shear all the plastic, especially because it's an older plastic. It has to be loose enough to where you can manipulate this without breaking the plastic, but also tight enough to where the screen just doesn't fall over. So there's a delicate balance here. What we're going to do is we're going to soak that in oil and let it work in, and we're going to work the switches, or the switches, work the hinges back and forth a little bit, and we should be good. We can put this display back together. While those are kind of soaking away in oil, I was talking to someone on Twitter, and he has one of these machines, and he was able to help me out. And what I've learned is apparently these must have a common problem because his was missing a capacitor there and it had a bunch of patch wires. Mine's missing a couple caps here, which his has. And he had some bodges, but perhaps more importantly, the resistor on his was burnt as well and replaced and bodged in. And there was a capacitor that was bodged in. So I'm wondering if these have a common problem. So this wasn't a short or something that happened in the motherboard, but it's just a bad design by TI. It's the only explanation I can think of. So anyways, going by his reference photos and what he measured and stuff like that, the other end of this resistor, which appears to go nowhere on my board, his meters out to the DC jack input over here. Now, what I did was I took my meter and I was pressing in this via very hard, and I can kind of get a connection between here and here. Sometimes it's a short, sometimes it's open. So we can verify that that's connected back there. So I can put this together now that I have new capacitors for the one that was here that was basically cooked to death. And these are all polymer caps. They're probably not bad. One of them is, these are the original parts I took out just so things wouldn't get lost. So that guy is baked. This one's okay, so I'm going to replace at least this one. I might change all of them. These are low ESR, so we might possibly do that. Also, I decided to order some resistors. Now this guy is extra big because I went a little larger in wattage, and it's a 47 ohm resistor that goes there according to the picture that he sent me on Twitter. So I'm going to use that and see what happens. So we're going to go ahead and rebuild that power supply module while that's soaking over there. So we'll get that, and that doesn't have any caps I need to worry about right now either, so we'll just get that guy done. And that is it. Well, hopefully. So I didn't put the cap back in here. I put the smaller one in and bent it over out of the way because this resistor is going to get hot. So I moved that out of the way, and I moved this out of the way as I possibly could to try to keep the heat away from that, and I moved that coil back a little. I also patched it here, and I ran a patch wire from over here up to there. The only thing I got to do now is I got to put that diode back in, which is sitting here, and I got a reference photo of where it goes. So hopefully I can get that in there right. Once that's in there, the only thing left are these two caps that are missing, and there's one right there that's missing, C4 or C40. I don't know what effect that's going to have yet, but you know what? We got nothing to lose. We'll try it. I don't think it's going to work because I don't see a power switch on here. I think the power switch is on the this thing here. Yeah, it is. But I can still plug it in and see if there's any explosions. So let's do that. Do the power. We need you to be about 18 volts roughly. This is center positive. So that means I must connect you there. Of course, there's a better way of doing this, but this is what I have at the moment. Alright. No current draw. Nothing getting hot either, so. Well, now I need the buttons in order, or the switch in order to see what the heck happened. So let's get that all hooked up. I just took the board out because I wanted to see if I needed to patch up any plastic or corrosion or anything anyways. So pulled the board out, I got it connected, and let's see. Nothing. Hold on, got nothing. Oh, that's the standby button. There's the switch. So okay. Hey, we got power. Drawing current. Let's see, what are those LEDs? Those are num lock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Caps lock and then scroll lock. Let's see. Is it doing anything? Yeah, it's posting. So that's the num lock. And that's the floppy disk drive. Yeah, it's working. The board's posting. Ooh, got a double beep. That's good. Hey, the board is working. Wow, this laptop was absolutely trashed and the board is working. See if that resistor's getting hot. Actually, no, it's not. Makes me wonder if that's for charging the battery. Transistors are getting warm. We're not getting hot. All right. Good enough. That answers my question. Is it going to work? Yes, it's going to work. So, while we have this apart, you know what's surprising? There are two sliders here. There's only one on the top cover. Oh, yeah. How about that? There's an extra option. That might, you know what? I bet they made these in passive matrix, and that's the contrast control, which this unit does not have. Okay. Well, while we have it apart, I'm going to spray these out with some fader lube and maybe clean this up a bit, even though there's no corrosion on it, so I'm probably just going to put it back in here. So this was mostly spared, so that's good. And then once we get all that out of the way, we can actually start taking a look at the hinges, and then we can get that put back together. Oiled these hinges, and I couldn't do this on camera because I needed both hands, but I worked these hinges back and forth, loosened up the nuts, and then retightened them. This one came good, but this one's too far gone. It's literally seized solid, and then when you try to oil it, it squeaks. It's rusted in here. It's bad. There's not much I can do. Not much I can do with those. They're just too far gone. At least that one over there with the spring is anyways. And through the rules of Ferengi acquisition, we have a few more parts. Now, this one has seen better days. I don't even know what happened here, but this thing is completely junk anyway. So, you know, I went online to look around for parts because we have issues with the hinges and I can't do anything with the hinges, even though I did fix the power supply. So here we are a week later, and what I want to see is, just out of curiosity, this power supply. And look at what we have here. Look at that resistor. This has got burn marks around the pins too, so that must have been a common problem with these, because this is now the third one, including mine and someone else's, that's like this. And we got a polymer cap here that's not looking so hot compared to the other three. These are all the same value, same one, except this one's not. Yeah, anyway, so, but it does still have the original parts in here. So I might be able to take, where this one here, my original one, is missing that capacitor here, while this one has it. So, there's also something going on down here that mine does not have. So there might be some differences in the design, or maybe that's a piece of broken plastic, I don't know. Anyways, I really don't need much from here actually, because the motherboard, which is still sitting up here, works fine, but I do have parts just in case I need it. The floppy drive is, you know, still intact and not rusted to hell and back, so I have a better specimen to use for parts. But that's cheating. So I figured I might as well just leave the original, keep the original board. I might swap around the metal plate because that one's rough. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But between the two machines, I should be able to get something working. But the keyboards are trashed on both of them, so I might be able to take both and make one good keyboard. But perhaps the most important thing, and the reason why I bought it to begin with, is this. Now this has a big gouge in the LCD, but perhaps more importantly, this answers the question I had earlier. This has got double sliders, where mine only had the one. So this must be a passive matrix display, and you can kind of tell that by the film they're using. So this is a passive matrix display, but I needed the hinges. So that's ultimately why I bought this one, is so I can get the hinges, because I need to replace the other ones. But everything else is a bonus. Now this is scratched all to hell and broken and stuff like that, but the two clips are broken off where I at least have one. So, but I need the hinges out, so let's tear this thing apart to steal the hinges so I can get the other one put back together. I do want to point something out, which is something that my other board does not have, and that's who it's made by. It's made by Daewoo. And it even gives you a schematic number. Tells you the system board and all of that. Huh. Neat. And one thing I noticed right away is this has a physical CPU in it, where mine, if we look at it, it does not. So there's some clear differences in the design. That makes me wonder if I can still use this metal, the heatsink thing. Probably not. I bet there's differences. Although, you never know. Maybe I can. If not, well, we'll just pull out the Evaporus and make something work. But I figured that was a neat little tidbit. As I'm taking the display apart, guess what this one suffers from? You guessed it. BPD, or aka brittle plastic syndrome. I bet this side will snap. Yeah. Junk. See, mine doesn't do that. This one's a lot more pliable. So my guess is this one was stored in a terrible location. But yep. Brittle plastic syndrome. BPS, or brittle plastic disorder. Not to be confused with borderline personality disorder. 50,000 shards of plastic later, I think we can finally get the hinges out of here at least. So we have this one. Try to get it out. No, I'm going to take them off the rear, I think. Yeah, well, anyways. So these hinges are still lubricated. I can still feel the oil. So, unlike the other ones, which were rusted solid. So, anyways, spare panel, even though it's passive matrix with a gouge in it, but that's not a big deal. I can replace that film. But yeah, it's out. I mean, this stuff is literally is just turned into peanut brittle again. I mean, just garbage. Once again, oh well, what do you do? This one's not as fast as the other one either. More layers of crumbling plastic later. We now have the hinges. We have the replacement ones. The old ones are over there, but the replacement ones are there. The mounts that were on the bottom, which were these, those are the original ones from the other one, were all egged out, so the screen was really loose, and that's why. These aren't nearly as bad, so I'm going to use those. I'm going to put a drop of oil here and here, since I don't have to soak these, and we'll just get them reinstalled onto the original display. I got the keyboard set out of the way here for a minute. We'll get to that later, but I want to get the screen reassembled, and I saved all the little pieces and parts and switches and stuff off of this, because this is all busted anyways, for that, so I can, you know, have some spares and stuff. So that one was underwater, so I don't know if the speaker's any good on that or what, but I got the extras anyways. So okay, I'm thinking about just taking all the pieces and parts off of this one anyways, all the screws and stuff, because the other one was missing all of its screws. So I figured, well, not the screen, but the base. So I figured, well, I might as well just save all the screws, because you never know with screws. I run into missing screws all the time, and I've had to dig into my screw bucket a few times. So I might as well save all of that. I did want to point something else out. I took the inverter off, and there's some differences. This is the one that just came out of here, and it's got 2 electrolytic capacitors. Slight differences. That's the one that's out of the other one that I'm restoring. So, very similar size, same plug, but it's a different design. Transformers even look the same, but this side is completely different. Figured I'd point that out. So, if you have one of these machines and you want to do a recap or something like that, just be aware that this is not the end-all be-all. This one has electrolytics on it. Now, they don't show any signs of leakage. I don't see anything coming out of its bungholes, but that doesn't necessarily mean much. Just know that there's some differences in the inverter. Trying to get these metal retainers back in here was nothing short of a miracle. I had to fight and fight and fight, and I ended up eventually needing to take this and make a wedge to hold, because there's a spring here, so I had to make a wedge to hold that in place so I could screw it in. Otherwise, it would have kept... Anyways, I'm sure there's a proper way to put those in, but that's... Finally got them in there now, so I can finally start getting this thing put back together. So I got it all back together now, and the display is back in. I just got to put the screws in and the rubber pieces. Now, one thing I noticed right away is, look at this. See that? That goes all the way around too. And see this, and it's a shame. The plastic on this shit is just junk. This is the second TI, actually the third TI if I include that one down there. The third TI Travelmate laptop like this. I don't know what they used for plastic, but it's garbage. So it's a good thing it was a donation to the channel, because I wouldn't want to put money in something like this. I'm going to put the bare minimum that I possibly can. Like, I bought some parts to rebuild the converter, but it's only a matter of time before this thing falls completely apart. I mean, I can keep patching it up until the sun goes down, but it's just going to crack in other places. So I suppose we'll do the best we can, and we'll just enjoy it while we can. But it's a 486 DX4 at 100 megahertz, which, man, these machines are getting more and more rare as time goes on. But now we know why they're getting more rare, unfortunately. So at least with that out of the way, let's start working on the base of it. We have the motherboard, but remember we had rusted metal that we have to deal with. Now, what I want to do first though is I want to take the base apart on the parts machine and figure out if I have enough pieces that aren't rusted and destroyed that will actually work on here, because the motherboards are different. The other one has a 50 megahertz DX2 or standard 486, whatever. This is a DX4 100 megahertz, so I want to use this motherboard. But I need to take the other one apart and see what I have to be able to make one good one. I definitely need to replace the back plate, and I'm going to take that from the other one as well. So let's move on. Upon removing the board, I pulled this guy off here along with this, and if I flip it over, the only thing left is this heatsink, which is kind of glued onto that chip. Now the problem is that I don't think is the same. So this is the one that was on the original board, which goes here as well. Same screw, same spot, but luckily this is aluminum, so I should be able to clean that up with some sandpaper or something. So I'm not worried about that so much. Now this is ruined, but if I'm not mistaken, that is the same. So we're good there. I can get rid of that. Also, this piece here is completely rusted. But the nice thing is, this is exactly the same. So I have a good one of those, so I can get rid of that. And then I have a good one of these, so I can hang on to that and then get rid of that. Trash. So I have those two pieces. The only thing I got to do now is I got to clean that. But this is a parts board, and then I got to get this back plate off because I want to keep that. And then this just gets put in the parts bin, and I can use that for something else if something were to fail. Because the good thing is, we have a SCSI physical controller. We have that. We have those. We have all these extra chips on here. That's going to be useful for another board if something fails. So we'll hang on to this for parts. Now the last thing is, we have the hard drive over here, which the other machine did not have. So I've got the bracket in the hard drive now. Whether the drive's good or not, I don't know, but at least I have the bracket. That leaves just the base. And I guess this was a government computer at one time. So I have the base. The other one was rusted right here. So what I want to do is I want to compare the two bases. The problem is this stuff's brittle, just like the rest of it was. So I want to check it out. And I've already got broken pieces, so I might just go ahead and use the other one anyways, because the rust here is not going to hurt anything. Alright, I took a sanding block to the heatsink, so I did the best I possibly can there. I didn't go crazy on it because, again, as we found out with the brittle plastic disease, we're just polishing a turd. There's no point of even going crazy with it, just to get it looking somewhat presentable. I got that off of there and replaced, so that's not necessary anymore. The new one is now on the motherboard right here. So that's done. I got to get the heatsink on there. Before that, I got to change the thermal pad because that's just nasty. So we're going to do that. And then the other thing I wanted to pay attention to is the plastic bottom cover. Now, this one, the plastic is stained. I tried, I cleaned it up, as best I possibly could, but it's just stained. But perhaps the worst part about it is it's suffering from plastic brittle disease, because I've been patching up cracks to try to get rigidity. I don't care what it looks like. I'm just trying to get it right. So that one's cracked there. I glued it. That's cracked, glued it. And then there's a crack there, which I glued. And then even more so, there's a bunch of cracks here. So it's all shrinkage cracks, stress cracks from brittle plastic disease. This is a bad composition of plastic. This almost reminds me of the SGI stuff. So there was some cracks there. That one's alright, but there. So I got the cracks glued in as best as I possibly could with some MEK. But there's only so much I can do about it. I have the other one from the other machine, which is slightly better, but it's really brittle. If I flex it even a little bit, it'll just start cracking and popping. Matter of fact, this one's starting to. I can hear it. So they're almost equally as brittle. So I'm doing the best I possibly can. Plastic is stained. There's not much I can do about it. I can use the other bottom, but then the model number is not going to match because that is a PB300T. The other one was a PB150S, which is not the same. So not that it matters a whole lot, but when it goes to looking up drivers or whatever, you're going to have an issue. So doing the best we can here. Unfortunately, it is what it is. There's a ring, there's a parameter crack occurring down here too, which I glued a little bit, but only so much you can do, unfortunately. But let's continue on. We have to get the board in here. Then we got to address the keyboard. Got the motherboard in place. Got all of the plastics in place, the heatsink compound on there, and everything's all good now. So I suppose at this point I can cinch down a couple screws in here, but the big thing for me is I need to work on the keyboard. So that's going to be the fun thing because the keyboard is so gritty and grimy you can't even press the keys. Now that will not pop off for some reason. There we go. Once we have the keyboard figured out, let's first off tell you what I want to do. I want to take all the keys off of that one, and I want to see what I'm dealing with first. Because if I ruin that one, I don't care because it's just a crap parts keyboard anyway. So let's tear that thing apart, I think. Now that I have all the keys off, I can look at the membrane and the rubber dome and see how things look. Let's see. This is all dirty, so I got to clean all that off. Oh, it just lifts right off of there. Alright, so we'll set that aside. Polyflex circuits. Made in USA. Alright, so the membrane is in good condition. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it alone. Yeah, that's good. Alright, so that's clean. Let's see what the ribbon looks like. Are they torn or anything? Ooh, what is going on here in that corner? It might be alright though. So, yeah, it's probably fine. So, there's a reason why I'm doing this, because the original keyboard, it's got big melted rubber on the bottom of it, and I don't know how you explain it. The slides for each key, there's a stem that's on the back of each key, a cylindrical stem, and that stem is grinding and getting bound up on the other keyboard. So these are all smooth, they all travel fine, so I can use this keyboard with the other keys. So I'll clean all that up here, and then we'll just do it that way, and then move all those good all the keys from that keyboard, clean them up. I think, let me pull the keys off the other keyboard and see the condition of the keys. I'll clean the keys up, maybe drop a little tiny bit of lithium grease in each one of those holes, and drop the keys in there and hope that solves the problem. So here's the original keyboard. Now this one has got some funky grease or something that got on it. I don't know if it's like melted rubber or what it is, but it's yeah, stuck to it. Anyways, so what I want to do with this one is I want to remove all of the keys and swap the keyboard out completely with mine, or the other one, because I have the membrane cleaned on that one now, so we're all good there. But these keys are like, they don't want to press down. See? Yeah, it's an issue. So we're going to take care of this by pulling all of the keys out. But before we do that, we need to pull the keyboard off. And because I need this palm rest here. It's the only one that I have that's any good. And it's probably because water got in it. So the membrane is likely not good anyways. but you can never tell. So we'll just take this keyboard out and we'll start popping keys off and moving things over. The way I'm pulling these keys off is the most stupidest way possible, and that black stuff is definitely melted rubber. So all we got to do is just literally take the key and pull it up like that. So they come off fairly straightforward. So hopefully we don't break any keys. And if we do, I got a pile of other keys over there. So we will pull all these keys off one by one. See how simple they are to just remove? So we're going to go through this one by one. We're going to check the shafts. Matter of fact, I need to take a look at these keys. See how dirty the shafts are. Oh yeah, they're rough. We'll need to clean these and possibly add a little bit of grease on them, but I'm not holding hopes on it. We'll try it though. I mean, again, we're polishing a turd, which I've said in so many other videos, because of how bad the plastics are. I don't want to put too much time into it, but I do want to get it working right. I managed to get all the keys off of this one, and there's a reason why this is out. You can just see how nasty this actually is. But I'm starting to notice the keys are suffering from brittle plastic syndrome too. It's eventually these are not, it's going to get to a point where laptops are not going to be savable. But the problem with these, I got two keys here where the fingers are coming apart, so I have those drying right now. I do have a pair of good ones from the other keyboard mixed in there, but all the other keys seem to be intact. So what we're going to do now is we're going to clean all these stems off and clean the keys out. And I'm probably not going to bother with this particular keyboard. I mean, I have a membrane, but oh man, there's like water or something stuck in here. It's so very liquidy. It's very oily. Yeah, it's not normal. But well, we have a good membrane in case we run into any problems with the other one. So at least we have that. So I think for now I'm just going to leave this off to the side, and we're going to use the other one that we have over there, and we'll just set that out of the way. But what I want to do is I want to clean the keys with the toothbrush, and I want to take a Q-tip and some of my lithium grease, and I want to just barely put some grease on all of these buttons as I reassemble them back into the keyboard, and then check their travel and make sure everything's good. That's what I want to do, and I'm hoping that works because I don't really have much other way to fix this keyboard besides that. Nothing better than alphabet soup when you're sick. All of the keys are done about an hour later, and all the nasty crap that came off of it. So it didn't turn the water black, which I didn't expect it to, but yeah, they're all done. I just gotta wait for them to dry off now, and then hopefully we can start putting this keyboard back together. Now that all my keys are dried, what I'm doing now is I'm slowly putting it together, and things are starting to feel a lot better now. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the stems, because I cleaned everything off, and I just wet my Q-tip with the same luber plate that I'm using for cassette decks and everything else, and just barely getting a little bit of grease lube on the shaft. Just a tiny bit. You don't want a whole lot, because it's going to attract dust and gum up. And by the time it starts to gum up, the plastic's going to be so rotten it isn't going to matter anyway. So I just want to resurrect the keyboard, and this is how I'm doing it, so I can actually type on it and it not get stuck. Which it kind of does if you try to... Yeah, it's not really designed to do that, but... So we're going to go through here, and we're going to put all the keys on one by one while we lubricate the stems. Slowly but surely this thing's coming together. This is very time consuming, but I had to fix the stem over on this one because it kept wanting to stick. Now it's all good, so everything's working here. The end key isn't sticking anymore like it was. Everything's good. So the thing about this is what I have on hand. That's what I'm using. Like I said earlier, you use just a tiny bit right here on the stem on each side. Just a little bit. If you use too much, it can get into the membrane and cause problems. It could start attacking the plastic and weaken it, which it's already weaker than shit anyways, but we don't need to make it more weak. So just barely enough on there to kind of help glide it. And even then, this is a crappy keyboard design. This is like those PowerBook Duos. If you don't hit the key exactly on center, it will not drop. It's better than it was. I can actually type on this thing now, but you got to hit these keys dead on. And it's a product of the design, because the better keyboards have scissors with a plunger in the middle. Instead, this one's got a stem in the middle and a plunger surrounding it. It's a terrible design, and I think the PowerBook Duos are made the same way, which is why a lot of those keyboards are problematic too. But it's coming together slowly but surely, and we'll come back once we have all this mounted in the bezel. The keyboard is complete, finally. So got all the keys in there. It's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect because, you know, even then, these keys are hardly ever used, and I still can't. Yeah, so it's just a garbage design. This thing was probably like that new. It probably had horrible reviews just for the keyboard alone. Anyway, so that's done. It's out of the way, so it's time to start working on the base and getting the drive and all that stuff in there, and then I think we can start putting it together and doing a power-up test. Oh, I can't put it all the way together because here's the other thing about the parts machine. I got the floppy drive, which is a little less rusted. Unfortunately, I'm still waiting on the belt. So, yeah, I don't have a belt for this drive because this is a belted drive. You could see where the belt comes down on the angle where my fingers are at. So I need the belt for that, and then once I get the belt for that, I can put that together. But for now, I can probably do a simple power-up test and see if this machine will actually post and I get a picture on the screen. So, you know, let's do that. Let's see if we can get a picture on the screen. I'm not going to hook the keyboard up or anything because that's not important right now. But I do want to plug the LCD panel in and see if I can get a picture on the screen. This was such a pain in the ass to get in there. Trying to fish all those wires in there. I can't bend this without support either. It'll just snap in half. So, yeah, because of brittle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to plug the power adapter back in here, and then we're going to turn this on, and hopefully it works. Alrighty then, here goes nothing. Hey. Nice. It works. All right. So we have a working system. Nice. All right. So now I can safely put this thing back together. And hopefully, I can't do anything with a floppy drive for now, but I can put the other stuff in there. I got to figure out how to finagle this guy in without breaking it. So I got to work at that for a bit. Getting this thing put together is definitely for a fun time because there's some ground wires. I didn't know where they went because I didn't take this one apart, so I just stuck them wherever. And trying to fold all the wires in there while putting it together is fun, but I got it together now. Some of these screws go in holes, some of them don't. I don't know where all the screws go, so I'm just, you know, shoving them in holes and making sure they don't come out of the top. So really, like I said before, it's mostly a resurrection and not so much a restoration because the plastic is crumbling anyways, especially with the cracks forming all the way down the sides. So yeah, there's only so much I can do. We're polishing a turd at this point. I just want to get it to a state where you can actually use it and have fun with it, and then that'll be that. I'll play with it, and then I'll move it on to the next person possibly. I don't know yet. I haven't decided, but I do want to put the time into it to fix it to the best I possibly can. So, moving right along. She's all together now. The hinges have some wear. unfortunately, because there's play in the screen. Not a whole lot I can do about that, but you know what? It's upright. So that's the important thing. We're upright. All 100 megahertz of upright. So the next thing I want to do is I want to see if this will boot from the hard drive, if there's anything on the hard drive at all. I don't know that there is, and if not, we're going to have to do something because I don't have a belt to the floppy drive, so it's not like I can load in software and do it that way. Maybe. Actually, this does have a SCSI plug on the back, so I bet I can put a SCSI CD-ROM drive in here, but I don't know if it's going to boot from that drive. Probably not. But I think we're going to go ahead and start putting the rest of these screws back in anyways where there's screw holes. I did the best I could back here. Because they're supposed to be... The black screws won't quite fit in there, so I just put some silver ones in there. I put the black screws at the top. I got to put a screw in here and then over here. But it's slowly coming together to the best we possibly can get it. So let's keep moving forward. And as soon as I hit the F1 key, it's starting up Windows 95 for the first time. That's what's pre-installed on this hard drive. I don't know exactly what is on there. Oh boy. Corrupt or the system is low on memory. Oh boy. Okay. Well, we're getting somewhere at least. So, yeah, everything seems to be functional. So I'm just gonna wait for the belt for the floppy drive and start getting this thing put back together entirely once I get the floppy drive built. This is actually the factory hard drive that's been upgraded to Windows 95 because there is the factory software in the utilities folder. So, because the setup, if I run that, takes me to the BIOS. So, and then there's TI icons.dll. So I need to back this drive up before I go any further. I know that, you know, it's been upgraded to 95, so it's kind of screwed in that regard, but I don't know if there are backup copies anywhere. Probably not. So that was in the utils folder. There's an Internet Windows Win95. I don't know what version of Windows it is. I don't have enough RAM to run Windows because it keeps complaining about not having enough RAM, not loading. Let's see, what's in the temp folder? I don't know. Nope. So I'm curious. Yeah, let's power this down and back up the hard drive because I want to make sure that I have a copy of this in case this drive crashes. Because I do not know if those utilities are on, you know, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if they're on the internet. That's the problem. Ooh, what is this? That looks like yeah, that's the Windows 95 installer. Let's see, how many cabs are there? 17. This must be 95B. No. It might be 95A. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. It's been years since I've dicked around with 95. So if I go... And the keyboard is just sitting on here. I don't have the floppy drive or anything yet because there's no point. I need to wait for the belt. But, is there anything in or was I already in temp? Yeah, let's see. CD utils DIRW. This keyboard's garbage. See, reboot, PAL, setup. I mean, there's some cursor files for Windows 3.1. There's the, I don't know, I forget what it is. PKZip, PKUnzip is in here, I'm sure. Diskmate, DOS notes, factory.cms. I don't even know what a .cms file is. find out. Set CMOS. Oh. It's a specific file. That's probably what restores it back to factory default. So anyways, so everything is in here. There's getstat.exe. That's the status for the system, the alarms, battery, .pro for program manager. Yeah, everything's here. What I don't have, or what I don't see, is the drivers, unless that's the driver. The audio drivers are probably in here too. Possibly. Alright, well, I need to back this drive up before it's lost, so let's do that. Alright, well, I tried to back up this hard drive with my modern tools, modern-ish. Nothing I do will detect this drive, because this drive predates the more modern auto detect functionality. Now, what I've done in the past is, here's another drive, for example, which is about as old, but this one can be detected. The thing is, there's a jumper that's on this particular drive here, while this one does not have that jumper. Now, you can move this jumper over to this drive, or any drive like this, and the more modern stuff will detect the drive. My USB one device will detect this drive after I do that and show the proper model number and serial number, but it won't read the capacity properly. It's reading this capacity as like 2 something terabytes, which we know that's not right. So I went ahead and grabbed this drive out of my junk bin and hooked it up, backed this drive up, because this went to the TI Extensa from around the same time period that all crumbled into 1,000 pieces, much like this one's starting to do. So I did that, backed this drive up with any, software or something on here that I might need, and then I just low-level formatted the drive. So this drive is blank. I will say, though, this drive is slowly starting to die, so I think I'm just going to put this drive in there since it's bigger, and we might as well just run the life out of this drive anyways. Who cares? And save this one for a rainy day, because this drive is good. Now, the only other thing to do at this point to back this drive up is to use my external drive tools and my boot floppy and stuff like that. But that creates another problem. So I can do that, but the issue here is the floppy drive. So this particular floppy drive is a Citizen W1 series drive, which is why it starts with W1 there. Well, the problem with the W1 drives, they're so thin, the motor that's on the bottom of this is not direct drive. This is a belt drive motor. So there's a belt that's wrapped around a pulley here that comes up and around and goes to the motor that's here and then back around again. Those belts always go bad. So I have another drive here, which is the exact same drive, but this is the Dell version of a drive. The same time period. I bought a belt for this a long time ago, and this drive works. It works no problem. So what I'm going to do for now, since I'm waiting on the replacement belts to arrive, just to wrap this thing up and get it off my bench, I'm going to take the belt out of this drive and put it in this one so I can get it put back together here. That will allow me to boot this drive up into DOS and be able to do things with this hard drive here, so I can back it up. I'm going to back all the files up off this drive onto an external storage medium. That way I can, get everything done. And once I get this drive backed up, I'm going to set it aside and not use it anymore. And I'm just going to throw this crapper in there and set up a basic install of Windows and stuff like that and get this machine up and going again. But I got to deal with all this mess in order to make that happen. The fun of retro computing, right? Alright, so let's move on. Let's get these drives apart. I want to get this one apart first. I want to get to the belt and get it out. And then we're going to move the belt over from this one to this one for now, until my belts arrive. And as I confirmed, it is in fact a Citizen W1D. Only place to get those belts right now as the making of this video is in Germany. and I'm waiting on them. Took out a few little screws and I was able to get the lid off, and I sat it over there, and you can clearly see inside the drive where the belt is, and it's gooey. I mean, look at that. It's really sticky, so it's got to come out and get replaced. So yeah, we got to remove this, and you have to be careful because the heads are back here, and you don't want to damage the heads when you're taking the belts out of these drives. So first thing I want to do is I want to figure out how this comes out. Pretty sure it comes out from the front first. It does. So I need both hands to do this. So we lift up the front and we carefully slide this out. But you have to lift the head up. Otherwise, you're going to catch this top head on the back piece of metal and you'll rip that head right off. So you've got to be super careful. So we're going to remove the mechanism out of the way, and then we're going to get to this belt right quick. After removing the faceplate, which you have to be super careful because you don't want to break it, we removed it out of the way. There's a spring here that retains the door, and that spring goes up underneath and in between this section here. So once you free that up, you can actually lift that out, and while you're lifting that out, you have to grab this head from the back here and lift it up in a way so you don't smash into this, like I said. So now that we have that out of the way, we can take a look at this belt. So this belt is, oh man, it's like really bad. It's crumbling apart, so I got to get rid of the belt. Man. Oof. Which tells me, see, the Dell drive wasn't this bad. So that tells me that this thing has baked in the heat for years. So it was literally stored terribly. So we'll peel all this out and get rid of it. Oh man, oh, you broke. You suck. It's extremely sticky. Alright, so that's out of the way. Now I gotta get it off of this pulley. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, I don't know how to get it off this pulley. Alright, so let me fight with this for a minute. Now that I got all the belt gunk out of the way, I took my pick tool and tried the best I can to clean out between the pulleys. There's some corrosion on the brass from the belt being on there, so I cleaned it as much as I could. There's still a little bit. We'll just have to see how well it works. The other thing that is of a potential concern is this right here. There's a 33 microfarad 16 volt capacitor down there. Whether it's showing signs of leakage or not, I don't know. But the only way to get to that is this whole board has to come out, which means we have to unplug the head stack, unplug the stepper motor, the drive motor, and then take the screws out the back and remove the board to get to that. It's pain, but if you want it to last, we don't have a choice but to do that. So the floppy drive can always be used in another laptop that uses a W1D if something were to happen to this one. So I think I'll just go ahead and change that cap and we can get it out of the way. 50 million screws later, which are easily strippable if you're not careful. What I typically do is I tighten them a bit and then loosen them so you don't strip them. And then now we have the board out so we can actually get to that capacitor. And I'm just going to use, that's just a filter cap. So I'm just going to use a solid cap there. I'm going to use a ceramic, which I think I have some on hand. And then that'll fix this guy right up. I got the capacitor off and tossed it, and it's not showing any signs of leakage either. So that cap was probably alright. But given how these surface mounted electrolytics are, especially in this era, better be safe than sorry. And just like that, the capacitor's been installed. So now we can get this guy back together and get the belt in. And let's hope it works. Oh, I'm not going to put the hard drive in this guy first. I think I'm just going to boot from the DOS disk and see if it'll read it. That's one way to do it. as far as testing is concerned. The other thing I noticed too with this particular drive is, you see the center hole? It's like an eccentric hole. It's a Von Wobulator. I don't know if that's normal or not, but that's what that thing's doing. And with a little magic of video editing, we now have the replacement belt installed, and that capacitor's been replaced. Now, I slipped and poked, so I'm hoping it didn't damage the connection. If it did, I have another one of these drives that was all rusted up from the other model, so I can always put that back in there. But anyways, we're all good now. So okay, now it's just a matter of reassembling the drive and getting it back in the unit. I did take this drive apart, like I said, so I could get the belt out of that one, because I have more coming. So not a big deal. At the moment, I just want to get this machine put back together. And there it is. The floppy drive has been reinstalled. Now, again, I don't remember where all the screws were, and the other one was already missing screws, so anyways, floppy drive is in place. I got a screw there, one there, and one there, so it's not going anywhere. I'm just gonna set, I'm not gonna plug the mouse in right yet, but I'm just gonna set this guy down, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna power up this thing quickly as a quick power on test, and hope, let's see, you go here, and you go there. Not the most effective method in the world, but hopefully that solves my problem. So power on. I'll grab my DOS boot disk right here. Alright. We'll see if it boots from it. I hope. F1 to continue. Nope. Drive no good. No good. I thought something was weird about that eccentric looking shaft. Yeah. Well, let me mess with this a bit and figure it out. So this situation has completely devolved. So that drive there was the one I was just working with, and I'm pretty sure the heads are bad on that one, or it's out of alignment. I tried to format it, and it almost could, but I don't know. So we're going to try this one. Move the belt over and try that one, because this one didn't have the belt all corroded in there like that one did. So this is one that was rusted, and of course, as expected, fucking everything's breaking on me, so all the plastic. But I'm not worried about that right now. I just want to get a drive working. So here's where we are with the floppy drives. Now, I finally have a working drive right here. I'm re-gluing the plastic because brittle and it broke. So did the other one. Yeah. Anyway, so that drive works fine now. Mostly. It could be a little sketch when you format, but other than that, I'm able to read and write discs. That's the important thing. Now, so this was the rusty one with the board, and that one was the one that was okay. So what ended up happening was the one that was okay wouldn't read discs, as we saw earlier, but the stepper motor made a funny noise, like it was missing a step or something was wrong, and this is the board out of that. So I had to take the hub off, because this one, when I put this one together, it wouldn't grab the disc. It just kept making noise. And come to find out, the reason why is the hub, this little pin is not wanting to come all the way through. It's just kind of sitting there below the, it's not working. So when you flip it over, there is a tab that's supposed to be there. Well, guess what? It's broken and gone. Probably because it's brittle. So I had to steal the hub from this one and put it into this drive. But I was flipping and flopping boards back and forth, and this is the This is the carriage assembly from the rusty one. I put the other one in here. Yeah, things like that, just to rule out. So there's something wrong with this board physically. There's a bad component somewhere on this board, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. And the hub is also bad, so it doesn't matter. That's literally a scrap drive at this point. So, and this one I'm waiting on my belts to come in so I can put this one back together. But yeah, it's a good thing I had both drives because I'd have been screwed otherwise. So now, with a functional drive, I can finally start getting it back together, but I have to wait for that thing to dry, unfortunately. But until it does, I can at least get the carriage assembly and get it back in the machine. One thing I'm noticing with this system as I use it, when this floppy drive gets hot from the CPU and the motherboard, it quits reading disks properly and keeps throwing errors, and I've been juggling between floppies to try to get something read properly. But if I shut it down and let it cool all the way down, it boots up and reads no problem. It almost makes me wonder if the head alignment is slightly off, because I've noticed if I format a floppy disk in here and I copy stuff over to it, I can't read it in another drive. But yet this drive can read disks formatted from the other, so I'm wondering if it's slightly off alignment, and when things heat up, it drifts off even more. So, yeah, it's one of those situations where I think I've got a head alignment issue. And the problem is, the stepper motor on most floppy drives, you can rotate them a little bit physically to change the alignment. This one you can't, so it's not exactly clear how the alignment's adjusted. And I'm wondering if it's positioned based on, because I've noticed the gear will move in between steps. So that makes me wonder if you can physically turn the gear, and then wherever its resting position is where it starts. And then when I'm taking the mechanism apart to change the belt, the head's moving back on me, and that's what's throwing it out of alignment. But I'm not entirely certain.